Itself as the ideal destination for investors seeking opportunities. That's the message from President Cyril Ramaphosa, who's leading South Africa Day celebrations at the Dubai Expo 2020. He says the event is an important platform to reboot the global economy following the adverse economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Invited by Dubai's ruler, Sheik Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the president spoke on what's been designated South Africa's National Day at the Expo with the tagline, "Think South Africa, think opportunity."
South Africa is among 192 countries participating at the Dubai Expo 2020. It kicked off in October last year and is set to close at the end of March. It's been a platform for countries, companies, including small businesses and other stakeholders to meet in one place, showcase their offerings, share ideas, as well as to spur trade and investment. Following on from the South Africa Investment Conference in Sandton last week, which attracted further pledges amounting to 332 billion rand, President Cyril Ramaphosa is in Dubai to whip up more interest in the country.
I encourage you to make the South African Pavilion at Dubai Expo 2020 your first point of call. Team South Africa is offering sector-specific webinars as well as seminars that highlight the various opportunities for investment and trade. Our diverse industries include traditional sectors such as agriculture, agribusiness, clothing and textiles, automotive, mining, capital equipment, tourism, hospitality, as well as manufacturing.
A shrewd salesman for the country, the president pumped up other aspects around investment into the country.
We have a strong and well-regulated financial, banking and taxation system. We also have world-class IT infrastructure that is attracting global companies to set root in South Africa. And we also have a range of business and investor-friendly regulations and policies. Most importantly, we have a ready and able workforce with the necessary skills and knowledge and capabilities to take business forward to great heights.
Local business may question the president's claims as they continue to complain about government red tape hindering them from pursuing projects. But the president was upbeat to his international audience, also pointing out that South Africa serves as an important gateway to the rest of the African continent. Nompumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, for more on this, we're now joined by Saul Levin, who's the Executive Director at the Trade and Industrial Policy Strategies, and he joins us via Zoom. Saul, great to talk to you again. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. The last time we spoke, it was the great investment conference that took place here in South Africa. I suppose this is another chapter of that whole story of trying to get people excited about South Africa.
Yes, it's a very important initiative because what we see is that moving onto a global platform off the back of the success of the investment conference, it gives an opportunity to create new investor interest in South Africa. What we saw at the investment conference last week was a lot of the companies that are already established in South Africa, global players and local players, were committing substantial investments in the economy. We're not seeing a lot of new players coming into the market. Where they typically come in, it might be for a specific power project or linked to an existing investment that they party to. So it's important to try and get investors interested, but also to tell the world that the players here are excited about South Africa and they're investing.
Do you have any idea what we are selling in particular? I mean, we can't sell everything, I guess. Maybe it's a question of having priority areas.
Well, I mean, what we see from the conference and from the investments that were made is that there's key sectors that are pretty strong in South Africa. So I think it comes through the renewable energy. There's huge opportunity, mining, particularly mining linked to the minerals for renewable energies, but also sectors like pharmaceuticals and other manufacturing like automotive and agro-processing are really, really strong sectors. There's also huge opportunities emerging in telecoms and the digital economy. And that's where a lot of interest has come through. And these are globally sectors that are really interesting. So there is already a strong sector, and that generates more appetite and interest. And I think what we saw from the president's clip earlier is he's selling a skilled workforce. Now, not everyone is going to believe that if you're living in South Africa. But, I mean, what we do actually have a fairly skilled workforce, and we have a workforce that has capability. So that and a lot more so than what we see in some other emerging economies. So we do have a lot of opportunities to offer on that front as well, and pretty good infrastructure. I think that came through in the conference. You know, we all moan about our potholes outside or on the way to work, but the reality is that South Africa has pretty good infrastructure, and the captains of industry who were talking last week were emphasizing that as well.
How important was it for us to send our head of state there? I guess having someone of his stature does attract interest to our stand, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing more than just going to visit a stand. I think he's going onto a global platform. It's the World Fair that, takes place every couple of years. It's got representation and stands from across the world, but it also gets a global interest. So you'll probably find that all the global media outlets are covering it as well. And because he's a head of state, it will attract a lot of interest. But also, when you go to countries, you don't only visit the exhibition. He's going to be doing bilateral meetings. And if investment is his priority, he's going to be talking to the leaders of those countries about the opportunities in South Africa, as well as to big industry in those economies or who visiting the fair. So it does create an opportunity to not only engage with the global platform, but have those bilateral engagements to say South Africa's open for business, we're rebounding from the COVID pandemic, and there are opportunities in the economy in some pretty important sectors.
UAE, Dubai in particular, has really positioned itself in many ways as the center of the world now. And so what that means is that we're competing with a lot of people for attention. Do you think that we will get a decent look in?
It's a tough market, but I mean, I think that's why, it's important to sell what the country can offer. And, just some of the important things would be is, when people see the investment coming in from the existing players, they're going to say, maybe there's something happening in that market. Our growth last year, despite everything, was pretty good growth. So it does create investor interest. But also, I mean, what we have seen is that the countries in the Middle East are typically interested in issues related to power generation or, the typical sectors that we see from Saudi Arabia and Turkey, which have a lot of our investment from those countries have been around power. And so with us moving into renewables and those countries also looking very strongly at the technologies around renewables or alternatives to coal power, there's a lot of appetite that we could get from countries in the region to invest in South Africa, particularly in those spaces.
All right, so what do you think can be achieved? I mean, it's a short trip and he's meeting some key people, but we're coming out of COVID-19. We're trying to kickstart our economy. We got excited about the pledges that were made last week. What can we get that can make a difference, do you think?
I think in the short term, these kind of trips, aren't going to, result in someone saying, oh, here's, a couple of billion. I think what it is about the long game. It's about saying that, think about South Africa, look at the opportunities, maybe set up a small office here or look at a partnership arrangement. And typically we see that a lot of global investors, they start small, they make a first investment, or maybe they do an acquisition in South Africa. And then once they get used to the economy, then they start growing their investment and starting to understand the market a bit better. So this is really to start whetting the appetite, getting these countries and these firms in that region more interested. But also, I think what's important is to send the signal back to investors in South Africa that the president is looking at growing the economy and driving new investment into the economy. So it's an important signal, and it's important to create the positive case around what's happening in South Africa.
How have we done in terms of, because we're talking about people coming in, inward look, but how have we done in terms of an outward look, particularly in this region?
And I think that's where part of the story lies, is that South African firms are starting to invest in the region, and part of what the president is selling is the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and the SADC region, saying that there's a wealth of opportunity. Come into Africa, start in South Africa, and it's a good opportunity to then expand your footprint. South Africans have slowly acquired knowledge and understanding of how to operate in a variety of different markets. And you as a foreign investor can build off that. And South Africa is a relatively safe space compared to some of the other countries in the rest of Africa. So it's a good starting point and a way for companies to start looking at countries in the region and in other African countries. And really what we have seen is that companies that are based here, particularly global companies, are starting to explore these opportunities. We see it in the automotive sector, we see it in the mining equipment sector, that these opportunities are growing. And as we get it right to have regional integration, it's going to be important to see the neighboring countries around South Africa and across the continent increasing their industrial base so that they become stronger economies, and then the trade opportunities grow. So it is a very long game, but we have to start somewhere, and this is a good place.
So this World Expo, it runs for quite a while, and it's huge. I believe 192 countries probably represented there. Tell us a bit more about that and why it was important for us to be there.
So the World Expo is a regular event. It's been hosted in many countries across the world. I suppose the most famous is the Eiffel Tower that was built for the World Expo in the early 1900s. So it's got a long history, and it's important to bring the world together. And so typically at these events, you would see each country taking a stand, marketing its culture, its food, its business environment, its opportunities, and encouraging bilateral trade and tourism and I suppose global integration, which is probably much needed at this particular point in the world's history. So, I think that by being there, he's signaling it's an important event. He's signaling that he's taking it seriously and is looking for partner countries to come and visit South Africa, work with South Africa, trade with South Africa, and experience what we have to offer.
Do you think so far the president has struck the right notes, said the right things?
I think so. He's reiterating a similar message to what came out at the conference. And I think what we saw at the conference was the captains of industry who were on the stage, and sometimes there were small businesses representatives on the stage, giving a very positive message about the country, about what could be done. Obviously, they raised the concerns, the red tape, the blockages, some of the frustrations. But overwhelmingly, it was with the view to, let's fix it. Let's get together. Let's find a way through some of these challenges. Let's understand what the challenges are, and let's get about and fix it. And the President is taking that positive message of what came out of the conference, the very significant pledges that were made at the conference, and he's taking that to a global platform and saying, you know, let's ride the wave. Let's do this. Let's bounce back from COVID, and let's find new opportunities in a growing market.
Saul Levin, always great talking to you. Thanks so much indeed for joining us and giving us some insights on this very important trip that the President has taken. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night. All right, that's Saul Levin, who's the Executive Director at the Trade and Industrial Policy Strategies, joining us, talking about President Ramaphosa's trip to Dubai at the World Expo, and also some of the meetings that will be taking place to try and get us people abroad excited about investing in South Africa. Stay with us after the break.